Hey guys, Michael Ketchen here with another episode of the Michael Ketchen Show. As always, joined by Matthew Hitchcock.
How we doing?
Mateo Saratora. Just thinking about that. Shout out to Matt, living his best life with us last summer in Lake Como.
Lake Como, San Tropez.
Went back to the Italian roots.
I missed Europe this year. So much.
Hannah did too. I have to hear about it every day.
Yeah, next year we're going to go somewhere. I don't know where.
Why are we in the south of France? I'm like, well...
We decided to put a pool in this year, and it's been an interesting experience.
Yeah, we bought a ranch, so here we are.
Yep.
But Mateo Saratora, you should just go by Mateo Saratora. It's such a more badass name. I don't know.
That'd be nice. It's kind of disrespectful to my dad, but...
Yeah, but you legally change. I mean, I think the legend would understand. So we got something a little different today. So shout out to Danielle Harrisek. She put a poll up on Instagram. They asked people, what questions do you have for Mike and Matt? And there were questions aplenty. So the plan for today is try to answer and ask some of these questions, and we'll have a conversation.
Sounds good.
I'm going to kick it off. I'm going to see where we get started. And my God, there are a lot of, thank you, Danielle. There are a lot of questions. We're doing a lot of reading and scrolling on this episode, apparently. Okay, let's fire it off. You ready for like lightning round? How do you successfully scale a business with a partnership? Are you always aligned on your goals? Do you compromise or let one person lead? I feel like that was an indirect dig at me, my overly aggressive attitude. So thank you
I
for
would
ever
say
asked
that, as everybody knows, Mike is a very strong leader.
Oh, thank you. That was a very polite way to politically correctly. Politely just called me an asshole. So that's basically what just happened there.
No, but I mean, obviously, when I met you, you were like an older... I grew up just only child anyways. Mm-hmm. So I had tons of friends, but for me, like, you were always kind of like an older brother-ish person.
Yeah.
So I think naturally, us from the friendship side of things, you kind of had that mentorish leadership type situation, which I think translated into business. I think overall, because I've grown up with you, I think we're pretty in line with most of what we think or do. Obviously, you're just very good at executing and articulating certain things, I think, so...
Yeah, and I think the big important thing there, and I tell people this all the time, because we're a unique company with 3 owners. You don't always see that. I think as you do a long-term partnership, I think the core foundation is what's important, right? Things might always go in different, directions. Like we've done some more short-term rental stuff than Matt, but Matt's done. Matt, a lot of people don't know this. Matt actually was the first landlord in the group. Matt had a multifamily. They still owns that. Good Lord, has it? Good thing you held on to that thing. That's done well.
Yeah.
And now, he's starting to dabble in the STR, and we do this and that, blah, 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 blah. But I would say the core foundation is very important. Mm-hmm. And I also think the real question in there that I don't think people talk about enough, we can expand on that, is how your goals and scaling change over time. Like when we first started, and we've talked about this before, but I didn't think we were going to have employees and a company and, a portfolio and, what are we now, between the STRs and the multifamily, like 8 states or whatever? It's something ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's insane. So I don't think you start with that. I think the big thing when you go into any partnership is put everything on paper. Shout out to Catherine Morin, who did that early for us. But also discuss and be willing to be flexible and understand there's no right or wrong. There's no winning or losing. It's, is this best for the company? Yes or no? And I think that's very important in a partnership, to communicate clearly what each person wants and understand where it's going, but be flexible. Again, like I said, we started with an Airbnb. I mean, I remember Kenny Bunkport. I think we were talking about leaving our jobs or anything. I was more like, hey, it's just going to be a fun...
We started it with a side hustle. That's pretty much what it was.
That's actually the trait. Side hustle culture. That was a whole big thing.
We were like, just do a side hustle so we can make a couple extra bucks on the side while we work our normal W-2 jobs.
Yeah.
And again, it started out as thinking we were just going to flip, because that's what we thought investing was.
Yeah, remember we thought flipping, you flip a house, we were just trying to make a couple of bucks.
Yeah.
Right? That's how a lot of people start. And that's what I mean about like the vision expands and the partnership has to allow, I mean, maybe some people, maybe those people exist on their first business, right? As you grow, obviously you think about different opportunities, but your first business, we're going to have this, Fortune 500 company with 1,000 employees, maybe. It wasn't our goal, still not our goal, but now, I mean, you do have employees, you have a company, we have multiple companies, and I think it evolves, but I think the partnership evolves and grows with that.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say like be so focused on, I have to have 100% clear vision, this is what it looks like, today is what's going to look like forever. It evolves.
No, just communicate, touch base every once in a while, quarter by quarter, year by year, whatnot.
Yeah, check in. Also a good one. Okay. Do you find yourself stuck on a problem where they can't find a creative solution? If so, what do they do to get the creativity flowing How can you influence others to think creatively and outside of the box? That's a great question.
Well,
A lot to unpack there.
our staff, anyways, we've done the 1-3-1 method, which has
Yeah.
been a huge one for trying to get like solutions figured out and going back and forth and brainstorming essentially open out loud so that they probably already have a lot of the answers themselves, but I think that they need to have someone to bounce it off of and kind of listen to it, put it out in the open air, and then start to work through. So, I mean, we have emails that go through our business all the time that we're still involved in. We can read and see. And then we touch base with some of our higher level employees that give us certain problems, and we touch base with them saying, well, this is the way I would do it. Or we'd also probe them on certain questions like, well, what do you think the best 3 options are right now? And now which one's the best one that you should actually lean on, and so on and so forth.
And I think to echo Matt's sentiment there is that when you, if you are solving every problem inside of your company, you're working in the business, not on the business. And this is very hard as a founder and as an owner is employees, you have to let, one of my mentors just said this to me. This is the hardest thing. I struggle with this. You have to let things go to failure. Sometimes you have to let them stub their toe and show them there is a different way. Because sometimes just flat out, that's just going to be, it just has to go to failure. There's no other way to do it. And on the creativity side, I think, especially as a founder, as an owner, and people do not do this enough, you get in grind mode. And if you're grinding, you're not necessarily growing. You have to put time, and I wish I'd done this soon. I do it now, but I wish I'd done this even when we started. You have to put time on your calendar to allow for deep thinking. You brought employees in for a reason. The reason was to give your time back to grow the company so they do better, you do better, the company does better, everyone does better. Well, if you're not putting time on your calendar to think to grow the company, no one is doing better. I would really, and what I've done is I put time blocks. I might have a cigar. I'll just walk around. It's really in silence. You have to have time to think through a solution. If you don't have time to think, to whiteboard, to work through it, you're going to get stuck, and it's going to be very hard to get unstuck. So,
and side note, don't just hire an employee just to hire an employee. Make sure you have a clear direction for them.
Oh my God, yeah. Don't like, we've done so many things wrong. Like, give them a framework for success. Actually, the one thing I'm working on right now, because again, mentor just said this to me. What does winning look like? Does everyone in your team know what the scoreboard is? What does winning look like? What does success in your company look like? And that's something that we're working on right now, because we're like, well, what does it look like? And, you know, the advice he gave, which is why it makes it so challenging but so good, is really boiling everything down to 1 to 2 metrics per employee. And you got to nail those metrics. And they have to know this is what winning looks like. And sometimes when you're going really fast and you have a million things you're doing, it's big effort, it's big energy, but no one knows the scoreboard. And that can lead to indecision, that can lead to confusion, that can lead to lack of ownership. So, yeah, that's kind of the best way. I think the question was about creativity. We ended up talking about employees. I don't know what it was. But hey, you know what? We got there. This is our show. Damn it.
It was a
We'll
side
do what
note.
we want. Okay. All right. What was the hardest part of scaling your property management group while focusing on finding deals?
Was?
Yeah. How did they split up lanes and time with finding hires, etc.? Be a fucking sociopath. Try to scale 2 companies at once.
I mean,
Drink
to
a lot of
me,
coffee.
I don't know that this is a was.
Yeah,
I feel
it
like this
still
is still
right
is.
now.
I mean, it's going back. It's obviously a lot better than when we first started it, but it's still there's still a learning curve that we're still trying to fine tune. We have a lot of things very dialed in, but there's just, as you know, we always are trying to strive for more excellence. So there's just more that we could tune.
Yeah, to talk out of both sides of my mouth, and that's what I said back a second ago, but working on your business versus in your business. It's also a dangerous game. You can easily step away too fast, too soon. And things can get broken really bad. Now, I'm also a big believer in let things break and you'll grow and you'll fix it, which is what we're doing now. But for example, we just uncovered our leasing process was essentially broken. It had got so convoluted as we were working through everything else, growing. We uncovered that there was a kink in the hose where essentially some of our assets were not talking to our back, you know, I don't know what you call it, your internal team or whatever it was. And that's an example of when you're scaling, you need to do spot checks. Like I have a saying, the whole company's heard a million times. The system is never broken. There's just a kink in the hose. And every time we have a problem, whether it's collections, renewals, leases, maintenance tasks, turnovers, I mean, you name it, it always comes back to there's a miscommunication somewhere in the pipeline every single time. And that's what we just uncovered. So I think the biggest thing is as you're scaling those, it's the spot check. And to answer the first question, acquisitions, I believe, should be one of the last things you give. I would delegate out property management before acquisitions. And that's essentially what we've done. And the reason is this. Property management is largely systematic, consistency, and you can usually course correct anything inside of property management. One deal can change your life. So the risk reward ratio here and what you delegate out, you got to think about that for a second. And if you go and buy the wrong deal, you overpay, you over lever, you buy the wrong market, that can have a cascading effect that actually negatively impacts the property management company. Property management company can impact the overall business, but I would argue it's a much slower moving, easier to course correct train than one acquisition can just be like the Titanic and it can sink the whole ship. So I would definitely focus on acquisitions, even if you have to use a third party management until you bring it in-house or you don't want to bring it in-house. But I'd be very hesitant to give up acquisitions.
Yeah, I would
agree with that.
I mean, and to your point, I mean, we self-manage, but if you think about it from someone that does do a third party, if a third party property management company is not doing that great at a property, you could easily fire them and just hire someone new. Can you easily just get rid of a big building that you bought and that it's a lot harder, and then make your investors happy and all that on top of which.
No, we know. Trust me, it's not easy. So definitely, I hope that helps answer the question. But definitely, worry about scaling the acquisitions and the property management second is the best way I would say it, in my opinion. It sounds like Matt agrees. Okay. What is the main use of your in-house property management? What are the tasks they mostly delegate to subcontractors? Oh, that's kind of these are very property management specific questions.
Yeah.
What do you think there?
Well, again, I mean, we're lucky enough that even our property management sort of has an internal maintenance team as well. So I know a lot of property management companies, they'll use like a third party. We have a lot of people internally that work in our different, like we have our bogs and our boots on the ground.
Yeah.
So they'll dispatch out anybody that has maintenance issues. We have our leasing agents or our customer care reps that are on site that can help with putting eviction notices on the door. So we're trying to keep everything as in-house as possible, I think. So as opposed to the third party, which that's more of the construction brand new when we go into a building trying to stabilize something.
And that's what I think guys get in their own head. It's we do what I call real value add. I mean, we have some buildings where, I mean, you're doing legitimately like turning every unit, replacing plumbing, replacing HVAC roofs. Like at that point, without a construction arm, and companies do have construction arms, we don't. What we do there is we have a project manager on the staff, and he oversees those with third-party vendors. But for the internal stuff, turnovers, cleaning, weekly walkthroughs, 90-day look-aheads, our clean, safe, ready template is something that's vital that we use every month. That's all internally with the team. And I would basically, the way we always think about it is like this. Anything that's going to essentially consist of day-to-day activity to live at the property is probably handled in-house. Anything that's going to kind of be a one-off, you're going to need a specialist, you're probably subbing that out. And then you're spot checking for quality control and price shopping, I think is the best way to say it. Now we have another question here. We got a lot of questions. How do you manage large properties out of state? Well, I'll tell you how. Sign up for coaching and we'll get in depth with that one. You want to know how the sausage is made? You got to pay to play. That's where we're going to go with that one. What are the smart tech benefits in your properties? Do you monitor the tech or have a team for that? Yeah, that's a great one. You want to kick that off? And
yeah, I mean, we definitely shout out to PJ.
Yeah.
He's one usually, generally speaking, kind of monitoring a lot of the keyless. Actually, we were just talking about that before we came on the air, right?
Yeah.
We had an issue with one of our buildings out in Ohio, and he was able to go and actually check the user codes and check the access points and who's coming in and out. And he's like, wait a second, no one's supposed to be living in that unit.
Yeah, we caught a guy. We caught someone. We don't know how the guy got him through a window or something, but we had someone trying to squat in one of the units. And this is actually one of the things that even if you have on-site management, people don't realize enough. When you get these big apartment complexes, say let's just do some simple math. Let's just say you have a 200 unit building and the market's vacancy is 10%. Well, that means at any time you're going to have 20 units down. Well, 20 units down, you don't have anyone checking them. People might do nefarious things. That's what happens. What we have with our system and how we use it is we get a weekly, actually it might even be daily, but I think it's weekly, activity
You can
report.
set it for different
Yeah, I think it's set up
parameters, but
activity report for the keyless entry. They're synced with all the cameras. What we also do is, like one like internal rule, the way we use the smart tech, that I don't know if other companies have done or not. When you don't pay your rent, you obviously get a letter, demand for rent, notice to quit, all those things. Well, one thing that we do on the 5th of every month is we run that access history report to see if activity's been used. What happens, and the reason we do that is if someone hasn't used their code in a few days and they're behind on rent, there's a high probability that person is ghosted, meaning they left, they just moved out. And what you don't want is you don't want to go through the whole eviction process and delay that unit being down for longer, so it takes longer to release. So what we do is we go ahead and we will run that activity report, and then we see if someone hasn't paid and they haven't used their code in a couple of days, maintenance will go knock on that door, do an entry, check on it, and a lot of times we're able to get that unit back online quicker if the person's moved out. So that's one great way we use it.
And that's an important point because, again, we didn't just come up with that. You learn that through errors and experience. So I know it was a few years back where we had a different keyless entry system, but we had someone, I don't know if it was PJ or somebody else on our staff, they kept following up, asking, hey, where's the rent? Where's the rent? Where's the rent? It was like 2.5 weeks. They didn't answer. Kind of got overlooked. Staff got busy doing things, never decided to knock on the door. Finally ends up being the end of the month. We're going, what we think through the whole eviction process, it turns out the person had been gone for like 3 or 4 weeks anyways.
Yeah. And that's how you learn. And that's kind of back to what we were talking about, right? You got to let things go to failure. You got to stub your toe. Like it's not going to be perfect. You can't game out every scenario, but what you have to do is you have to be flexible and realize you can learn from the mistakes.
Yeah.
And the other big thing that the cameras do that we love is the cameras give us eyes in the sky. And at the end of the day, any human is still a human. They're not perfect. They're going to need time off. They're going to need weekends off, whatever it might be. The technology eliminates that need. So you get coverage, you get compatibility in real time at all your properties. And it also creates leverage, meaning one person from one remote location can, in theory, cover different parts of the country. That's where the tech really comes in. And then the last big one is obviously the remote showings. It allows to show your units on self-guided tours at a much wider window without the need necessarily for a person being there. So that's something that we've benefited. Anything else? I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
No, I would say a lot of times we get the question of, oh, well, you're just letting people go in for self-guided tours. What if they stay there? What if they do this? What if they do that? A lot of our applications that we have when someone goes to schedule the self-guided tour, they have to upload a credit card and a license to kind of verify who they are. So it gives us a little bit of skin in the game when they go to see the unit.
All right. One more here. This is a really good one. When did you know it was time to build a team? What position was your first hire? And how did it help grow your portfolio?
Like first hire? Because that would be Chris.
Well, I mean,
that's maintenance.
First hire.
I feel like I would say I'm going to go with Chris for first hire, mainly because you and I are both not handy at all. So you need to have somebody that can handle doing plumbing and electrical and things that we definitely do not know how to do. So I'm going to lean
it very politely. Me and Matt are not exactly handy.
I'm going to lean into the Chris side. I have a couple other ones too that you could kind of go with first, but
yeah, Chris is our head of maintenance, or shout out to Chris. Has actually been our longest employee. Chris is awesome. Chris does everything. So get yourself a Chris. That's the best way I could say that. But for a better clip, to put that in perspective, for those who don't know Chris, a maintenance tech is probably, if you're going to self-manage and you're starting to scale, figuring out maintenance is going to be the biggest thing before anything else. And the reason is this. If you are the owner operator, unless you're handy, which in some ways is almost a curse because then you think you can fix everything, and that's cost. My favorite is the guy's like, oh, I flipped the house, I did it all myself, and I made 30 grand. No, you didn't. Well, yeah, I did. No, you didn't. How many hours did you spend?
Yeah.
Well, I did everything. Okay, so let's just do some math. If you spent 3 months, 50 hours a week working, bill yourself out at a contractor rate of say $50 an hour. Now what did you make? And it's like people don't realize that. So the maintenance, you got to get that off your plate right away because usually they're not the same skill set. But then I would say and this is a two-part answer. If we were starting the company again today, let's say we have our knowledge, we don't have a deal, we don't have anything else. The first hire I would make is I would go recruit, aka steal, a really good experienced property manager from one of the companies in the town that we want to invest in, I would overpay them because the leverage and the time back that they're going to give you is astronomical. So I would go get that A player and I would do that. That would be who I go get if I was starting over. What if you were starting over today? Who would you go hire first?
To piggyback off of that, that makes sense because we just tried figuring it. Like, we learned property management, not from any traditional schooling
learning.
or
Don't even know if we're
anything
that
like
good at
that.
it, but-
So to your point, if you had that A player, they would be able to already have a playbook to put in place. We just tried to create a playbook as we went. And then we finally ended up putting a couple people in place. And then afterwards, at the end of that road, we were like, well, we need to have this person that can drive the tip of the spear with all these other people that we hired.
Yeah.
So that makes sense on your end. The other one, and it's not necessarily a hire, I guess, I would lean on EOS, which I think, shout out Ian Bishop. I think he's been very crucial because we would hire people and we think that we're like, oh, this is kind of our playbook, and we sort of give it out to employees.
Yeah.
But then afterwards, we're like, wait a second, they're not really doing it the way I would do it. And even though I wrote it down, they're still not really following it or doing
They're
it
still
correctly.
not listening.
Apparently, we're the problem. We didn't really make it very clear when we
Yeah.
thought we did. So
Yeah.
not necessarily, I guess, a hire, but I would hire on an EOS type coach
or
like
consultant.
like an
That's a
EOS.
really good one. All right. Well, that's some inside baseball. And I hope that this episode helps. And if you guys have any more questions about how to do property management, how to buy your first deal, don't hesitate to reach out. He's Matthew Hitchcock. I'm Michael Ketchen. And as always, bet on yourself.